Last week, Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa announced they are joining forces to establish a BRICS alternative to the World Bank. Down the line to discuss the good and the bad points is Craig Botham. Craig, some economists believe the BRICS Bank should reach out to Africa's emerging leaders, give them a voice and let them define the problems to be solved and draw attention to homegrown solutions. To your mind, could this be a game changer for the BRIC nations?
I suppose as far as the BRICS are concerned, one of the main benefits of this will be to give them a greater political weight and influence in Africa, as well as the rest of the emerging markets. Particularly if the loans that they make are subject to less conditionality, or less onerous conditionality than lending from the World Bank and IMF. I mean, that'll be the main way to which, they manage to lever this up. The main appeal to African nations of a BRIC bank loan would be if it was less conditional than the usual international body funding. But I'd say it's hard to describe that as a game changer for the BRICS themselves.
On the other side of the coin, others have asked just why is South Africa contributing $10 billion to the $50 billion balance sheet of a proposed new BRICS development bank? Shouldn't any structural changes be taken care of domestically?
I think there are a couple of sides to this. Part of it, I think, is just that involvement with this project bolsters South Africa's claim to be the leading African economy. And they might be feeling they need to do that more so now that Nigeria has, by some measures surpassed them in GDP. So there's certainly that political element, and there's also, I suppose, the political pain of being excluded otherwise from a BRIC bank when they've been pushing a claim for so long to be part of the BRICS. But also, this is the basis on which all such funds tend to work, right? If you look at Britain, it pays into the European Union, and then Cornwall receives structural funds. So there's an argument to be made that such bodies are capable of ignoring political biases, which would otherwise skew the allocation of investment.
Within the BRICS themselves, there has also been the suggestion that apart from emerging economies, there is starting to be some inter-competition, for example, between Brazil, South Africa and China. Is this a trend you've noticed?
It's hard to see South Africa as a real competitor for China, at least in economic terms. Obviously, South Africa is very focused on commodity extraction and relatively low value stuff. China is trying to move up the value chain now, so out of competition with South Africa, if anything. I suppose the main way in which they would be competing at the moment would be politically. But even then, that would only be within the region, so fighting for influence within Africa. Overall, I think it's hard to see South Africa as a competitor to China.
The freshly named New Development Bank seems a clear potential rival to the IMF and the World Bank. What do you make of the suggestion that the BRICS Bank is born merely out of politics?
You can see a strong political incentive for the BRICS to do this in terms of the emerging markets and developing economies have complained for a long time that the IMF and the World Bank ignore important factors when deciding whether or not to extend finance, and that the conditionality attached to that finance is often, again, in ignorance of facts on the ground. So this, by offering an alternative, it gives the BRIC nations a chance to win more influence in the developing world. And it's also, I think, is born of frustration after years of attempts from China and the other BRIC nations to gain more influence at the assorted Bretton Woods institutions. As to whether politics is the only driver, it does seem to be the key one. It's hard to see otherwise what kind of benefits that the BRICS would truly derive from this. Obviously China has more than enough funds to invest in its own economy, and if anything, has been over-investing. So I think we have to look to politics as the key driver for this.
At a more practical level, the plan may run into significant headwinds as a result in basic failure of these 5 distinct but very different emerging market economies to agree. Who is set to gain here, and who could potentially lose if this goes wrong?
Yes, you're right. There are clearly challenges to this bank. The BRICS are a very disparate group, as has been pointed out by a number of analysts. it doesn't really make sense to group them together as in anything beyond quite large economies with large populations. So there's no obvious common purpose. So this is a shared failing with the IMF. I suppose the risk here is for the non-Chinese BRICS is that they've essentially swapped a US and European hegemony for a Chinese one, and so China gains by increasing its political clout in the developing world, but the others could lose out if they then become subordinate to China within this infrastructure.
Craig, great to speak with you today. Thank you for your time. Well, that's all from myself at the moment. Thanks for watching and see you next time.